Let's do a problem about Social Security and Medicare. Let's say that someone earns $80,000 in the first half of the year, January through June, and they earn an additional $14,000 in July of that month. Now, obviously, Social Security and Medicare have been deducted from this amount every pay period. Apparently, they get paid once a month. So, I'll give you these numbers on the test. Social Security is 6.2%, and the book says on $87,900. They call this the base. I really like to think of it more as a maximum or a ceiling or an upper limit. In other words, now this number changes every year, it goes up, but we'll use this number because that's what this edition of the book is based on. Think of one of those thermometers when somebody is doing fundraising and they say, here's how much money we need, and they show we've made this much and we've made that much. Well, think of this $87,900 as the maximum amount on which a person pays Social Security. So, you and I and everybody else are going to pay 6.2% on every taxable dollar we earn up to this amount in a given fiscal year. If we make anything over that amount, we don't pay that 6.2% on that part of our income for that year. So if somebody makes $1 million and it's all taxable, they're only going to pay Social Security on that first $87,900, and the rest of it, I mean, it's still income tax, it's still all kinds of tax, but not Social Security. Now, Medicare is 1.45%. This is Social Security. Medicare is 1.45%, and there is no upper limit on that. There is no base on that. So if someone makes $1 million in a year and it's all taxable, they're going to pay 1.45% on that $1 million. And their employer is going to match these two figures. So the employee is paying 7.65% for Medicare and Social Security, that's FICA. The employer is matching that. So if you become self-employed, you are now the employer and the employee. So you're going to pay both of those. Now, that's tax deductible as an employer of yourself, so it turns out you pay about 12.5% or 13% FICA. But that's a big chunk. So if you're going to go into business for yourself, remember that you're going to have to pay that. It's called SE tax, self-employment tax, because nobody's been deducting that Social Security and nobody's been matching it. So you have to pay that. Okay, now the question is, in this situation, we're not interested in the first 6 months. We're interested in what were this person's Social Security deduction for July and their Medicare deduction for July. Now, the Medicare is always the easiest one to do because there's no limit. We say, how much did she make in July? $14,000. We're going to multiply that $14,000 times 1.45%, and that's going to be her Medicare deduction for the month of July. 1% would be $140. 2% would be $280, so it needs to be between $140 and $280. And what does that turn out to be? $203 maybe?
Yeah, 2003.
Actually, it's $203. That's why we always want to estimate. 1% would be $140, 2% would be $280. So if we get our decimal in the wrong place, we'll either get $20 or $2,000, and we know that neither one of those is right. Okay, so $203 is the Medicare. Now the Social Security, that's the part we have to be careful of. How much has this person earned prior to this month? They've earned $80,000. In other words, they've gotten to this level. And the question is, how much more do they have to pay Social Security on? We would subtract $80,000 from the ceiling, from the upper limit, and we would say, after their June paycheck, when they had already paid on $80,000, they only have $7,900 left to pay on this year. Now, if they only made $5,000 in July, they'd pay Social Security on all of that, and they'd still have $2,900 to go for the year. But since they made more than that, they went over the top this pay period, didn't they? And it really doesn't matter how far over they went. All we care about is how much did they have left to pay on. So they had $7,900 left to pay on. That's what we would multiply times the 6.2%. And that would be this employee's Social Security tax withholding for the month of July. That should be around $500. For, what is it? $489.80. Does that sound right to everybody? That would be the Social Security deduction for the month of July. And that looks good.